let's talk about how afraid we are of what people think of us, especially after we leave a high demand religion. You know what would be so fun is not caring what people think. Ironically enough, the people who say they don't care about what people think are never telling the truth. You know the people I'm talking about, right? The ones who are like, I'll do whatever I want. I don't care what people think. Like, someone doth protest too much, if you know what I mean. So I am guilty of caring what people think. And I am trying to be less guilty of that. Backstory time. Here we go. Growing up Mormon or in any other high demand religion, you're very much taught to put your self-worth into specific tasks, which is so unhealthy. So unhealthy. You have a checklist, and this checklist allows you to be a good person, and you can check off that checklist as often as you want. Reading your scriptures, going to church, taking the sacrament, going to the temple, paying tithing, paying fast offering, paying more tithing, more money, all that. I don't feel like I just got this idea from Mormonism. I think I very much got it from my family that I grew up in. I was taught through actions that what you were doing was more important than anything else. And you should be doing productive things. You should be doing spiritual things. You should be doing, your homework. You should be cleaning. You should always be doing something, taking care of your siblings, whatever it is. And never was any of those things taking care of yourself. Heaven forbid, we have any kind of healthy things we're learning from our parents. I'm just kidding, but all right. I feel like oftentimes high demand religions don't encourage you to feel good about yourself because it's not conducive to you being a good member of that community. Because I think it's a fear-based thing. If you feel too good about yourself, you might not participate like you should. If you are super confident in your in yourself and your spirituality, you might not feel like you need to go to church all the time. So they have to kind of like keep you down a little bit. Like, hey, you're doing all right, but, just make sure you keep going to church so you can keep doing all right, And it's not just a religious thing. It's a society thing. We are conditioned to be very afraid of what people think of us. Part of that, I think, has to do with the fact that community used to be survival for us. It used to be, in caveman times, like if you were on your own, you're probably dead. Like it was, communities were what kept you safe, and it kept you safe from other communities that, other tribes or whatever that wanted to hurt you so community was vital to our survival. And now it's like, community is almost like vital to like our emotional survival because we feel so lost and so alone and so empty when we feel like we don't have that community of support. So growing up in a society and a church that told me that I shouldn't feel good about myself just made it all that much harder to leave when I didn't feel like I belonged there anymore, when I didn't feel like it was true anymore. It was that much harder to leave because I was so afraid of what people were going to think of me, and I no longer had this proof I could throw out there like, oh, well, I'm reading my scriptures, or I'm going to the temple, or I'm doing this and that. I didn't have that as like a weird emotional shield from like my own shame and to protect me from other people's judgment. For me personally, when it came to leaving Mormonism, the hardest part of it was being so afraid of what everyone thought of me. And then I think there were other parts of it that were really hard, like trying to reconstruct a framework of morality and spirituality and things like that. But definitely on the top of my list was I was very, very afraid of being rejected. Anyway, so I want to share with you guys, I was meditating the other day, and I was trying to work on my just feeling like I can be myself around people, because I often struggle to feel like I can do that because I'm worried about being judged. And again, over the years, I've gotten way better at it. Leaving Mormonism kind of forced me to get better at it, but it's still something that I want to continue to improve on. I just want to feel good about myself, and I don't want to have to worry what other people are thinking of me. I don't want to have to rely on what someone else thinks of me either. Like when people think good things of me, I don't want to have to rely on that to feel good about myself. I want to feel good about myself regardless. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like you. I heard this quote once. It was like, no matter what you do, there's always like 25% of people that aren't going to like you. And I was just like, gosh, like that's terrifying, but also like really freeing, right? Because if you know people aren't gonna like you anyway, like why bother trying to be so fake all the time if you're still not gonna be liked? So anyway, I was having this meditation and I was trying to kind of look at myself and my feelings and what's going on here. Why is it that I feel, trapped and stuck, and like I can't always say what I want to say, or feel like I can act like myself. I often, when I'm when I'm meditating, when I'm feeling my feelings, I will often visualize my emotions in like a metaphor, which I highly recommend. It's super, super healing. I think it just makes me feel very understood when I can paint my feelings in some kind of like visible metaphor. It's like I get some closure when I can do that. I can understand myself, I can have some compassion, and I can kind of move on. So I was thinking about this, and this kind of visual came to my mind of me, and I was younger, and it's like, so I'm like in my house, my childhood home, and I'm just frozen. And everyone else is moving around and saying things to me and doing things. And it's like, I'm just there, like standing, just completely frozen. Like not saying anything, like not talking, not moving, just completely still. And I was looking at this image of myself in my mind and trying to ask myself, like, well, what does this mean? Like, I'm frozen here. What does this represent for me? And as I was thinking about it, it was like I could hear the voice in like that little version of me saying, I can't get in trouble if I don't move. And a lot of compassion just kind of washed over me in that moment, because what I could see is that fear, the fear that little Morgan had, and that is still running in my system. That fear that any wrong move is just going to get her in trouble. So like, I better just not move at all. As a kid, I feel like I was often criticized in ways that didn't make sense to me. For things that were inappropriate, things I shouldn't have been criticized for. And I think it left me feeling very anxious, very afraid, very on edge for when that's going to happen again. Just kind of waiting for it to happen again. And it just started to make me feel like the safest move is to just try to do nothing, to just box myself up, to be as small as possible, to not make any move that could possibly cause any kind of issue. And that sucks. And that made leaving Mormonism a bitch. That was extremely hard. I think most people have experienced that in their childhood to some extent or another. This fear of what's going to happen if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or be the wrong thing. And I think the more we can deconstruct it, the better our life is, because we're able to live it in a more fulfilling and honest way. I'm starting to really believe in honesty, guys. I think it's my new religion, honesty. A little bit better than the last religion, in my opinion. But, not everyone will agree, and that's fine. You can live whatever religion you want. In the past couple of years, I've kind of had this motto that kind of helped me when I realized I was being triggered by something from the past, like being afraid of what people think or afraid of criticism or whatever. And I would tell myself, like, you don't live there anymore. Like, it's like that little Morgan that's in that house that's frozen because she doesn't feel safe. It's like reminding myself, even though I feel like a part of me is still there, just physically reminding myself, no, you don't live there anymore. So if something happens and I get triggered, I will often say that phrase to myself, you don't live there anymore. Like, you're safe. You can deal with this. You don't have to freak out about this or whatever. And it kind of brings me back into the present and reminds me that a lot of these triggers that I have are running on like an old pattern from my childhood and are not reflective of like my current life experience. That has been very helpful to me. So when you get triggered, remind yourself, you don't live there anymore. Wherever it was, you don't live there anymore, and it's about time to start building a new house here, where you are now, and live there. I think a couple things that have helped me with dealing with the fear of what people think is, one, having that compassion for myself. Like I said, like, I understand that the fear is there for a reason, and like listening to it and trying to be patient has been really helpful. I also think kind of congratulating myself on little wins has been really helpful, in addition to praising myself for making good decisions has been very helpful. Because as I look at a decision I've made and it goes well and I did a good job with something, I see that I can praise that thing and say, wow, I did a really good job with this thing, or I can try to. And it's kind of this building trust with myself, so I don't have to rely on what people think. Because if you don't have to rely on what people think, you can't be as afraid of it. Modern problems. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you are enjoying the deep dive in my soul. Hope you find it as healing as I have. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.